challenging, isn't it? Sorry,
Yeah.
I wasn't very active in the end, voting, paying attention, but whoa, the head got the better of me for sure.
I don't think we're made to have be on a computer like this all day, but I think it works a little bit, but there are some side effects for sure.
Yeah, it was.
Celine, I think we can go ahead and get started.
Excellent. I will call this meeting to order. It's the Thursday, July 16th, and this is the Colorado Water Conservation Board. We are on agenda item 22, which is the Basin Director reports. At the request of Director Schwartz, we have switched up the order today and will continue to do so in the future.
No.
See how that goes.
Any kind of order.
So today we will start with 22A, which is the Gunnison Basin. Director Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess the big news in the Gunnison Basin is in most of Colorado now is the drought. All of the Gunnison Basin is in the severe drought category, and a large portion is in the extreme drought, including most of Delta County and way over half of Montrose County. June was extremely dry, lived up to its billing as the driest month of the year. And with that, we've seen the same winds that we've discussed over time, and it's caused a lot of damage. One of the things I noticed is on the outskirts of Montrose, north on Highway 50, one of the trees that they always decorated for Christmas, an old pine tree, was a victim of it. And of course, we've lost several of the old cottonwoods across my project. And as I've said before, they're the landowner's trees until they fall down, and then they become our issue to deal with. My father used to talk about 12-inch rains, and his term was that it was 12 inches between the drops, and that's basically all we've seen since last winter here. Our crops are doing well. Sweet corn harvest is well underway. Our small grains are mature. We plant a lot of hemp in this valley, and it's ready to harvest. Hemp. We've seen more planting of hemp this year than I thought we would see. It's nothing like last year, but some farmers continue to plant that crop. And all of this helps with demand on the project. Hemp just loses less water, but when the sweet corn and the small grains come off, it decreases, helps reduce the water demand. So I mentioned yesterday, we have not a great peach crop in the North Fork, but the price is up. It's the typical situation where the demise of the fruit crop in the Grand Valley certainly helps support the price for the peaches out of the North Fork. On my project, storage-wise, we used Taylor storage early, and we're now using it again. Ridgeway, which is really our most important storage, we've used about 4,000 acre feet out of our 20,200 acre feet there. We're operating the project at 80% of demand. Hope to hold this till the 1st of August. My association put a call on the Uncompahgre River in May for 3 days, and then the runoff started coming, so the call was not administered. And we're currently under administration that started June 29th to now. This makes me kind of persona non grata with my friends in the upper Uncompahgre, but I do have a responsibility to my shareholders. You know, the demand on this project is really difficult to figure out. The weather, the past, and what the future looks like helps us try to foresee what our demand might be. The cropping pattern that's changed over time. You know, hemp was a real boon on lessening the demand of our water users. The farming practices this year, the farmers were able to get in the fields early, and there was a large early demand. At this time, there was no low snow, and I think you've heard me mention it before. We experienced an April hole and had to use storage from both Ridgeway and Taylor. Changing the subject, we have 8 new telemetry sites that are shown on the surface water report for the Gunnison drainage. I would caution you when you look at those, they're not at the last head gate on the project. So just because you see several second feet running by those sites doesn't mean we aren't capturing it and using it. Next year, we're going to continue this practice of partnering with Kevin Rain's folks over here and install 4 new sites on our feeders on Spring Creek and Dry Creek to the project. We use this water early in the season, and then they dry up as time goes on. We're currently applying for Water Smart grants through the Bureau of Reclamation. We're going to put water meters on our older pipelines. They were installed without meters on pump deliveries and small acreages with 3 and 4 inch ag valves. We're also applying for a Water Smart grant to replace what we've had as just a rock check on those feeders that I talked to before. One of the best quotes I heard this spring was, there's a tailwater decree on Sunshine Drain that's below our Dragons 2 spill. And we have basically operated that spill dry this year. The owners of the subdivision down there with that tailwater decree got up in arms, and how can you do that? And contacted us, but also a division engineer, Bob Herford's line, which I really appreciated, was, do they recognize they're living in a desert? And it's a sign of this year and what we experienced there. On a personal note, I think I mentioned before here that I did purchase a Jeep Wrangler. We spent the spring and early summer touring the Sound Lawns. We've been over Engineer Ophir and Cinnamon Pass. Watched the snow melt up there this year. July 4th, we took a trip to Lake City. The Colorado Air National Guard buzzed Lake City. It was quite a sight. And they did have a small organized parade there. After that, we traveled over to Creed, down to South Fork, and over to Bayfield and Durango, and up to Silverton and home. I was amazed
Thank you, Steve. Are there any questions for Director Anderson? Well, I'm glad you've been enjoying the high country. Let's move on to agenda item 22B. Let's move to the North Platte. Director Trick.
Thank you. It's good to see everybody, even if it's just over Zoom and it can't be in person yet. But I'm glad that I can get to see everybody anyway. The big news around here is also the dry conditions like everywhere else statewide. Fortunately, we've avoided the worst drought classifications so far, but I think right now we're classified as abnormally dry. And I think there's only a few counties up north that don't have any drought classification whatsoever. So we're dry. We've got a fire ban restriction going on countywide. And we have also had to rely on storage this year. We released reservoir water from Walden Reservoir around mid-June, and a call was placed on the river at around the same time that lasted for most of June and early July, and kept our brand new water commissioner on her toes. I think she learned a lot this year in a short amount of time. And so pretty unique year, but people now, I believe, are getting ready for haying season and starting to now shut off water, and hopefully we still get a pretty adequate crop, even though mostly everyone had to release storage this year and rely on storage water. And obviously the abandonment list came out on July 1st, so people are going to be worried about that and affected by it. So that's also happening. And countywide, there seemed to be quite a large stream of campers and outdoor recreators, even with COVID considerations, or maybe in spite of it, people wanting to get outside. Up here, 4th of July, camping sites, all recreation sites were pretty much packed. So I was, I guess, kind of surprised by that, but kind of not, because I feel like everyone else does right now, and people just want to get outside and enjoy the outdoors in our beautiful state. And up here, there was talk of shutting down one of the local recreation sites, which is the North Sand Dunes, where people can recreate and camp, but people were driving around the barriers anyway, so they just decided to keep that open over the 4th of July, and that was also completely packed full of campers and recreators. So a lot of people coming through here still. And I was able to call in and listen in on the June 17th IBCC meeting, which I guess is one of the advantages of having meetings on Zoom is it's easier to attend sometimes. But I wanted to thank everybody on the IBCC and just express my appreciation for all their hard work in drafting and submitting the demand management equity considerations summary. And it was good to be able to listen in on that meeting. And also many thanks to our demand management work groups that participated in our CWCB board process with staff, and their hard work and dedication and donation of their time to provide us with the report that we discussed as one of our agenda items yesterday. So thank you, everybody. And moving on to roundtable news, we have managed to get some business done over Zoom. So our last meeting was July 7th, and the main topic of that was basin implementation plan. And they had some work groups, 2 separate sessions of work groups for that early in the evening. And then a full meeting was conducted later in the evening. And the main topic for that was a WSRF application for water structure improvement projects. And that's related to the structure and measuring device compliance that people are dealing with up here. So we'll probably see that come in front of the board possibly in a future meeting. And there is not yet another date announced for roundtable, the next roundtable meeting. It will probably be held over Zoom, but that date will likely be announced soon. And just wrapping up on a personal note, I was fishing at an undisclosed location recently on a lake up here, and I saw a black bear across the lake. And that was interesting because I hardly ever see them in person, even though they're around. And so that was quite exciting, even though a little bit, he was kind of trucking around the lake towards us to the other side, but he managed to stay on his own side. So that was a pretty exciting little occurrence for me personally. So, and with that, I will end my report and take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Director Trick? All right. Thank you so much. And seeing none, we'll move on to 22C. We'll move to the South Platte Basin with Director Yon.
All right. Thank you, Director Hawkins. First of all, I just want to tell you that I miss you all. It's kind of hard. One of the things that I love about this board is how we get to travel around to different areas. And Director Schwartz, I think this was going to be your turn. And I would have liked to have been there, not just because it's 100 degrees here, but, it's fun to hang out with you guys too. So anyway, that's the way I wanted to start. And then I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but it's something that's troubled many people out here. And I was just saddened to hear the governor's remarks toward people that aren't wearing masks, which is about 90% of us in Northeast Colorado. So, and I'm sure you've all heard it, so I don't want to repeat it. But as I relayed to you before, the people out here, and I've relayed this in some of my other directors' reports, are some of the most caring and giving people. Sorry. Okay, to the water. I'll stop right there. In our area, the wheat harvest is about over, and it was not real good, but it was okay. And the other thing is to remember that our farmers out here are really resilient. They're used to drought, they're used to things, and this has been kind of a rough year. We had in the wheat, we had some sawfly, which is an interesting bug that chews at the bottom of the stalk, and then when the wind blows, all the wheat falls to the ground. So that we're dealing with that. Out on our place here, we've had lots of grasshoppers, an amazing amount of grasshoppers, I think eating as much as my cattle have. We've had some areas where there's been hail, and we've had a minimal amount of rain, but we've had enough to really get us through in most of our areas. So we're a resilient bunch, and so we'll persevere. The second cutting of alfalfa is just starting, so that's the nice thing about this warm weather is this is great weather for growing corn and harvesting alfalfa. You can put up some really good quality alfalfa when it dries quickly and you get some nice weather like this. So the corn is about ready to tassel and the sugar beets are growing well. And as long as you have enough water to put on there, you're doing all right. And on the North Sterling, we're about 58% full, which last year we were still almost full at this time. But this isn't that unusual to be at about 58%. And a lot of our farmers, as long as we have enough water at the beginning of the season, if they would rather just see it dry anyway, because usually when you get storms out here in the summertime, you're at risk of getting some hail. So they like the dry weather after that, and it's better for many of the crops. And of course, with the dryness, the price of hay is going up too, which is good for our farmers. The Pursuant Reservoir, which is a supplemental supply. So some years the Pursuant's not used very much at all. And this year we're at 64%. So we're using a good amount of the Pursuant Reservoir as well. On Roundtable News, we're continuing with our basin implementation plan. We're also continuing with our South Platte Opportunities Water Related Regional Group. This frog, I can't even remember what it stands for. But anyway, we're continuing with that, and we're continuing to work with, and I brought this up to you too, with Parker Water and Sanitation District as well on some of the potential with them doing a pipeline project and also working with our farmers. So all that's very good. And then I'll go ahead and turn to my slides there before you. And this again is just from Denver to the state line on the South Platte. So basically 180 miles of our river. And you can see at the Denver gauge up there at the top, since I'm colorblind, I won't attempt to tell you what color that is. But the fourth one down, Denver gauge says 107. And then you go down towards the bottom and it is 147 CFS at the Kersey gauge. Next slide, Vivian, please. And then from Kersey gauge, if you remember that number 147, as we continue down, you'll see the Balzac gauge, which is near where our head gate is. There's 223. And Vivian, go ahead and go down. And we'll go to the state line. So you go down to Julesburg gauge, and there is 31 South Platte River at state line 42.9. So our compact is 120 CFS from April 1st to October 15th. So we're below our compact, but it's on a 1897 date. So anything junior to 1897 is curtailed right now. But look at the bottom there, the divergence from Kersey to Julesburg. So we saw 147 at Kersey. We're dumping in water from Jackson and Pruitt. So a total of 430 CFS that is coming into the system, but we're diverting almost 1,300 CFS. So 1,300 minus 400. So there's about 900 CFS in return flows. And you know, we've talked about that. Director Feld talked about that yesterday when we were talking about the in-stream flow rules too. And so it just goes to show the return flows are very important to the people, and that's really their only water source in this area. Next slide, Vivian. You know, Director Trick talked about a lot of visitations. So this is North Sterling State Park. I thought this would be interesting for you all to see. So in April of 2020, you can see that the visitations were up in 18 was 8,700, 19 was 10,000. This year it was 37,000 people. In May, you can see that almost 4 times as much, 82,000. June, 94,000. We just have a lot of people getting out on the water and out towards our area on the reservoir, which is great. But with the funding problems, you know, with the Department of Natural Resources, our people out here at our state park are stretched, and you know they have to have their summer help, especially this year, and they have to have, you know, be able to inspect boats for the zebra and quagga mussels. So they're doing a good job, but they are stretched this year. I just thought I'd bring that up to you. Next slide, Vivian. And then this is a picture off my deck this morning. And so something that I'm kind of excited about is you can see some heavy equipment down in my wetlands. I got a permit for that. So just in case you're wondering, it's all on the up and up. That's a project that I'm doing in conjunction with Colorado Open Lands, Ducks Unlimited, and Partners for Wildlife. And we're building 8 structures down there, small little dams to drown out some of the cattails and make some duck habitat and other waterfowl habitat. And one of the benefits I get out of it is right now my cows can't cross that slough because they sink out of sight. So they have to go all the way around, and it's a long walk for them. And so when this is done, I'll have several places on top of the dams where the cows can go from one side to the other and make it better for me as well. So it's kind of a win-win situation for all of us. So I'm pretty excited about that as well. And the next slide, Vivian, and I'll just leave you with a sunset from a couple days ago off of our deck. Pictures from the porch. All right, that's it. So any questions? I would entertain them. Thanks.
Thank you. And I miss you too, Jim. Are there any questions for Director Young? Seeing none, we will move on to 22D. Let's move to the Arkansas Basin. Director Felt.
Well, good morning, and it is great to see you all. And frankly, spending some time on water has been really recreational for me compared to some of the other things that I've been dealing with, and maybe some of the tensions and emotions, frankly, that Jim alluded to. The veil is growing thin at times between, just a sense of clear, grounded understanding of who you are and where you are, and at other moments wondering what in the hell is going on and where are we all going to end up. It's kind of an hour by hour thing. So I definitely, I'm sorry you didn't finish your comments there, Jim, but I relate to the spirit of them. Absolutely. I'm sure everybody else does too. So thank you for opening that door in your heart. On the, as regards the Arkansas River, we too were in that southern tier of the state for the most part, and we are in severe or extreme drought pretty much throughout our drainage, except maybe up in the El Paso County area and Lake County, kind of the northern parts of our drainage. It's very dry, and as Steve mentioned, it's the forest is also very unhealthy. And so those two items combined, of course, create things like our Decker fire last fall. I've been reminding people regularly that the fact that we had the top priority wildfire in the country for a while last fall in Chaffee County, and we really haven't had a significant wildfire in our county in kind of the historic past that anyone can remember, does not in any way reduce the chances of having another one this year. And in fact, the conditions are much worse. And as Jim mentioned, visitation has just gone through the roof. A lot of dispersed camping. We're in a stage 1 fire ban in the forest and a stage 2 fire ban in unincorporated Chaffee County. Our call here on the kind of on the upper basin, say above Pueblo, is vacillating day by day between 1884 and 1887, and 84 calls out a lot of the big diversions in Chaffee County. And so it's a strange dance where one day the river will drop because the call got junior, and these diversions come online, and then the call will go senior, and those diversions will stop, and the river goes up, not down. So it's kind of an inverse relationship that we see. That's very difficult, I think, for the boating community to get their mind around. But I get a lot of calls about that. But that's going on. We're doing this dance. But meanwhile, in terms of the actual experience of the river, because of our voluntary flow management program, which is just a national example of cooperation and managed by the Bureau of Reclamation with water rights owned by Southeastern, Trans Mountain Water from the Frying Pan Drainage. we were able, at Southeastern, we were able to dedicate 10,000 acre feet of water for flow augmentation between July 1st and August 15th this year. And so far, we've actually only burned about 600 acre feet, and we've made it through the first third of that whole period, thanks in part to some periodic rains that have just kind of kept us at that 700 CFS target. And also thanks to my friend Alan Ward at the Pueblo Board of Waterworks, who has just fully internalized the objectives of the flow program and doesn't need to be asked to coordinate his operations with those benefits. And as a result, he's running a nice base flow all through this whole period for us of water that he held back that, historically he would have moved down in the spring or during runoff. He has been able to just apply that. So we actually have about 20,000 acre feet of water in a very dry year for flow augmentation. And that has brought a lot of benefit to our community. Very much appreciate Pueblo Board of Waterworks. The storms are a triple-edged sword for us right now. They bring us more water, which is fantastic. We need it in every sense. They also bring lightning, and we've had a few spot fires start that got knocked down quickly, thankfully. But that's how the Decker fire started last year. It was just one little bolt of lightning in September. And then, the third thing they do is they rain on our burn scar. And so far, that's another dance we're doing that we have no control over, but we're doing it anyway. And we've managed to avoid any flash flooding off the burn scar so far. Chaffee County's working with NRCS to implement an emergency watershed protection plan up there. So we've got about 8 properties that we are working on as a county. We're doing the work in-house to, in theory, speed it up to protect life and property on some homes and homes mainly that are right in harm's way. And so that's been kind of one more thing on the plate that we're just trying to get done. With everything that's going on, it does seem like tensions, challenges, interpersonal issues, anything that's perhaps a little negative seems to get amplified. And I think that's because everybody's under a lot of stress, perhaps more than they know or recognize or care to let on. But maybe the reserve that we all normally have and the ability that most of us have to kind of turn the other cheek or keep our cool has been diminished. And so I feel like I'm seeing, even in the water world, things going on in our basin that I don't think would have happened last year under the same conditions. So we've had some weird decision making. We've had some tensions flare, and we've had a few people throw up their hands. You may recall, you may know Chelsea Nutter or recall her. She got an award last fall at Winter Park. She got the Basin Hero Award from Becky for her work with the Arkansas River Watershed Collaborative. And she recently resigned from that position, and a real shame. And a big part of the reason she resigned was the way she was being treated by some people in our basin who I think were stuck in the moment rather than looking at the big picture and using their words. So really unfortunate there. And then Christy Knackard, who runs our Arkansas River Basin Water Forum, which is a really successful event, does a great job. And she too has resigned recently, and at least in part for similar reasons. So I guess I mention all that to say that, most of my time and energy, I said this in May, it has not relented at all. It's mostly going into trying to manage just the whole spectrum of challenges that pertain to the situation we're in right now. And the big one coming up is opening schools, or perhaps not, but I'm really committed to try and find a way. I think it's absolutely critical for our community that we get that rhythm back in our lives and in our institutions and in our business community. And that, it all starts really with the school year and the school schedule. We have a meeting after this one today where we're digging into that really deep in terms of kind of the medical side of the equation and how you operate a school system when kids are always sick at school, right? So how do you do that during a pandemic? And at the same time, I'm hearing screaming in one ear that we need to go to a mandatory mask law in Chaffee County, and screaming in the other ear that, by God, we're free and don't tell me what to do. And it's truly one of those no-win dilemmas. I drew a card from the tarot deck yesterday morning before our meeting, and I got the Two of Swords, which is a woman sitting on a chair holding two big swords, and she's blindfolded. And it was very symbolic for me that you are, it's kind of, you got maybe two bad choices and you have to pick, and you can't see where either one leads. You just got to do it. That's kind of the day-to-day up here for me. Not complaining. I'd much rather be in the middle of it than sitting on the sidelines, pissing and moaning, but it does make for long days and tough times. Just to give you one more example of how weird things are in Chaffee County right now, you know, we have a missing person here that disappeared May 10th, a mother, and pretty sure she's deceased, but we haven't been able to find her. And with all the challenges that are going on right now and all the pressures on law enforcement, both just in terms of managing people's behavior here and, of course, dealing with the social justice issues that are sweeping our country, we have the FBI here and the CBI, and it is a huge operation still over 2 months later trying to solve this situation. And I mentioned it just because I talked to our lead investigator for the judicial district this morning out in the parking lot. Since May 10th, so let's call it 8 weeks ago, right? A normal government person, let's say, works 40 hours a week. We all know that's probably not true, but let's just say it is. So that'd be 320 hours of regular work time, provided he didn't have any vacation in there. He has already logged in that same 8 weeks, 250 hours of overtime on top of his 320, thanks in large measure to this case, but also to just crazy behavior by people and the need to respond. So anyway, I think I'll just close by saying, Jim, you brought a tear to my eye. And I'm sure you did to most of us. And I appreciate you creating space for that. I think we're all going to need a good cry by the time this is over. And I hope that between now and that time that you all find an opportunity to smile, to get out like Curran did, hit the river or go over some passes like Steve was talking about. And look forward to reconnecting with everybody on the other side. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Director Feld? Seeing none, let's move to 22E, City and County of Denver. Director Brody.
Good morning, everyone. Before I turn to my slides, I am pleased to share with you all some breaking news of just a few minutes ago. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission just approved the final order for the Gross Reservoir Expansion Project, which is the final federal permit that's needed. There's still a tremendous amount of work to do before we actually break ground on construction, but this is a huge milestone for the project, which is identified as a priority project in the water plan. Many people spent countless hours working toward that goal, and it's nice to finally achieve that milestone in the project. So turning to the slides, Vivian, could you advance to the next slide? Thank you. So just a quick update from the Roundtable. The Metro Roundtable continues to meet on its regular schedule. We've had really good participation in our online meetings. As we've talked about, it's not a perfect format, but it allows us to continue to conduct business and have those important conversations. We've got many folks actively working on the basin implementation plan. We continue to review and approve a number of grants and letters of support, some of which you've heard about already in this meeting, including the 10-10-10 revised application. Next slide, please. I thought I would focus on water quality. I know as a board, we tend to focus on supply, but there are a number of really important developments happening in terms of water quality policy, both at the state and federal levels. First is on PFAS or PFOS. The State Water Quality Control Commission approved a new policy statement just a couple of days ago that essentially interprets what was a narrative standard through, in most cases, what will be a numeric lens. There has been some controversy among some about whether that is really the appropriate mechanism or whether the commission should have gone through a formal rulemaking. But nonetheless, in terms of protecting our water quality from PFAS, which are highly toxic, it's an important development and step forward as folks at the federal level are still studying the toxicology and trying to figure out what level, if any level, of these chemicals is safe and how best to regulate them. The state is trying to move forward and trying to take some steps. This is an important issue in Colorado. We do have a number of communities, particularly along the Front Range near Air Force operations and other airports, but also beyond that, who have been impacted by PFAS and their water quality. And we also want to try to avoid sending PFAS contaminated water downstream to my friend Director Jan. So it'll be interesting to continue to watch as that policy evolves and as rulemaking eventually catches up. On WOTUS, there continues to be a lot of activity around the waters of the U.S. rule. You heard a little bit about that yesterday. Here in Colorado, the new rule is enjoined. Elsewhere in the country, it's not. That will continue to be litigated. But again, an important issue that continues to be debated and also litigated and probably will for many, many years to come. Finally, on the federal level, we are anticipating that the EPA will finalize the proposed lead and copper rule likely in September. But again, that will have an important impact on water providers in communities that do have legacy lead pipes and lead fixtures in their service areas. So if we could turn to the next slide. I thought I'd give an update on Denver Water's lead reduction program. We are now halfway through the first year of implementation. I'm pleased to report that so far we've hit all project milestones, despite all the challenges faced with COVID, on top of the challenges we knew we would face in implementing such a novel and frankly large project. This is a snapshot of the dashboard, which is available on Denver Water's website that provides an at-a-glance view to members of the public who want to follow our progress. Just to hit some of the highlights, we have gone a little slower than we had hoped in terms of the actual lead service line replacements due to COVID. We had about 6 weeks, 8 weeks or so where we had originally planned to be out in the community replacing those lines, but due to COVID, we had to take a step back and create some new protocols so that as crews are going into homes to make those service line connections, they can do so safely and in a manner that's comfortable for customers. The good news, if you look at the chart on the bottom right, is that we are quickly catching up. So we started off slowly this year, but the pace of those line replacements is catching up, and we do still anticipate being able to hit our annual target. At the same time, we have distributed at this point close to 90,000 filters across our entire service area. We still have a little ways to go, but we are ahead of schedule in terms of getting those filters out to customers to provide interim protection until we can either determine that their line is not lead or until we can replace lines that are lead. We've got a significant community outreach and education plan that we're implementing as well. We've had a number of virtual community meetings that have had really, really strong participation. We had one virtual meeting where we had 1,300 people on the phone. Altogether, we've had almost 5,000 people participate in those online forums to learn more about the program, to ask questions about how to protect themselves, when they can expect to get their lines replaced, and what to do to make sure that they are safe and that their families are not adversely impacted by lead. We also implemented the pH adjustment earlier this year around March, and we're really excited to see that our LCR compliance sampling is showing really, really good results. Our 90th percentile lead levels are coming down and are anticipated to continue to come down now that we've stabilized that pH across our system at or above 8.5. So again, all in all, I would say this program has been a huge lift, but also a really, really important success so far. We still have a lot of work to do yet this year, but we are well on track to meet the year one objectives, and we are already planning for year two. Next slide. I thought I'd close just talking about another important water quality strategy here in the metro area, which is green infrastructure. Here, where land is at a premium, we've got to find ways to get both recreational, water quality, and environmental benefits out of our open spaces. And this is a really good example in one picture of all of those things coming to fruition. So this picture is one of the paths that's outside of my house. This is just a couple of blocks from my home. You can see there's a young deer in the foreground who calls this area its home. Off to the left, what you don't see is there's a water quality detention basin, which serves both flood protection for all of the surrounding homes, including mine, and also provides water quality benefits. So as that stormwater and runoff collect in the pond, there's grasses, there's other vegetation, there's filters that clean it before it goes down to the river. And you can also see, in the background, there's some people running and walking along the path. And there's a little climbing park that my kids used to play on when they were young. So to me, this is just a great example of green infrastructure, how it's being implemented in Metro Denver, and how both people and wildlife and our water are benefiting from this approach. So with that, I'll close. Take any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Director Brody? Seeing none, we will continue on. Let's move on to 22F. Let's go to the Rio Grande. Director Dutton.
Hey guys, good morning. So we were in the Rio Grande following many of the same trends that have been noted in other basin. Unfortunately, things have been incredibly dry. We had the driest spring on record with those same sustained winds that others felt. And so currently it's projected that the Rio Grande flows will be 65% of average, and the Caneos is less than 45%. And so we're definitely struggling, and our streams and rivers are low. And I saw just, last week, the outfitters started putting out guidance for people to stop fishing at noon because that it's just too much stress on trout. And so it's pretty tough. It also was noted at our roundtable meeting on Tuesday. The division engineer noted that the unconfined aquifer has dropped 100,000 acre feet already. And last year, with the incredible flows and snowpack that we saw, we added 150,000. So unfortunately, we're on track to erase all of those gains from last year. So not a lot of great news on that front. I guess the silver lining is that the monsoons have started. I was chatting before the meeting started about a pretty great bike ride we had on the 4th of July, and halfway through, the skies opened up and we ended that ride just completely drenched down to our unders. So it was a pretty great feeling, and it rained significantly yesterday afternoon. My neighbor has a really fancy rain gauge, and he reported 0.15 inches. So that's helpful. We're not sad about that. Russ Sands noted that some of the roundtable meetings have noted that with the online platforms, we're getting a lot of attendance, and that's definitely true with Rio Grande. We had a roundtable meeting on Tuesday, and it's tough. We all miss seeing each other, and we miss having that face-to-face conversation. But another positive benefit is that we're seeing really great attendance, and people around the basin that usually have to travel pretty far and have to juggle work and family commitments can take that time to participate. And so that's been really great. And I think we're thinking about how do we potentially keep that kind of option available in the future so that we can accommodate those that have to travel really far. And we're not even a really big basin. So I imagine others are kind of thinking the same way. As far as our basin implementation plan update, it's really rocking and rolling. Our local expert and the key person working on this is Daniel Boyce, who is hot off of working on the Rio Grande Caneos and Saguache Creek stream management plans. And so he's got planning on the brain, and he's really effective at corralling people and, putting these meetings together to keep things moving. And so he's been doing a great job of working with our 5 different committees and putting together project lists and keeping things going. And so that's been great to see. And I know there's a lot of momentum and excitement around the basin plan update. And especially thinking about how do we really prioritize, especially with the funding gaps or the change in the funding levels now from what we've seen in previous years. How do we really make sure that we are cultivating and putting forward the most critical projects for our basin? And that's been on a lot of our minds and a lot of conversation, and it's been really, really interesting and exciting to be a part of. I'm going to keep it short and in with that, with the basin stuff, but I do just want to take a minute and thank the staff for all of your hard work. In this meeting, we've heard people talk about being stressed, being pulled, challenged, and all the things that come with really big, fast change, and especially a reduction in resources. And so I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your resiliency and for your professionalism in keeping things going and, keeping our programs going and always treating each other and the stakeholders that we serve with respect and dignity. And I know that it doesn't always feel like it when we're in the middle of tough times, but tough times often lead us to incredible growth and opportunity. And so I just want everyone to continue to look out for each other and just to remember that, things are different, but the greatest strength in CWCB is the people. And it's this forum for policy and conversation and good work. And so even though, maybe our ability to play Santa Claus and give funds out all around the state, maybe that's going to change, but we can still participate in those projects in other ways. You guys, the staff of the CWCB, are the premier experts in water issues around the state, and that's our biggest asset. And so, yeah, maybe our financial capital hasn't changed, but our human capital remains incredibly valuable and impressive. And so, please don't be discouraged, and please keep your heads up and moving forward, and know that this board supports you and appreciates you, and we'll come out of this stronger than we went into it. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Dutton. Are there any questions? Director Yan.
Good words, Director Dutton. Thank you. But I just wanted to commend you guys over there, because you said your aquifer is dropping 100,000 acre feet. But if you wouldn't have put in those extra years 150,000 away, it would have been a lot worse. So you guys are doing good work down there. So I just wanted to encourage you to.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we will move on to agenda item 22H, Colorado River, Director Schwartz.
Wait, no, it's me.
Oh, sorry. 22G, Yampa White. You.
I mean, I know I'm normally last, so it's, it's just sort of human nature to put me there at the end, or basin down there. Thanks, Director Jan. I was doing that same math, thinking, well, you'd be in real trouble if you hadn't have put away that water over there in the Rio Grande. So I agree. Good work. Keep up the good work, especially. So like everyone else, the Yampa White has been experiencing hot, dry, wind, moths. I'm sure maybe some of you in other parts of the state are being overwhelmed with moths. There's so many of them all the time. I can't believe it. I tried to do some research on what makes moths so prevalent. Turns out it's hot weather. So I personally think they're pretty cute, but there still are a lot of them flapping around, and they come down and flap around in my face when I'm reading at night, and that I don't love that, but that's okay. So we are at, from June 1st to July 10th, 42% of our average precipitation over the past 30-year average. So, we're really feeling it. And as I mentioned before the meeting yesterday, I guess, did get a little 1/10 of an inch of rain this week. So that helps. Maybe, as we all know, when one storm breaks through, sometimes it opens the gates for some additional storms to actually drop moisture out of the sky instead of just rumble around up there. So I'm feeling positive that maybe we'll see some changes. That's all you can do, I suppose. So I have some updates. The Yampa White Roundtable, as I know I've shared with you in the past, has a big river committee that has been dealing with basically demand management, outside of the work groups that CWCB has been hosting. And, just a shout out to those folks that spend their time, many of them participate in IBCC or in the work groups themselves, but then also find the time to make sure that their fellow water users and interested parties can remain engaged through this big river work group that we have. And so, I just really appreciate that we can continue to make sure that these conversations are happening more on the ground level and less just up in the high level. So a shout out and a thank you to them. The Division 6 engineer, Erin Light, she sent notices out for the White River for headgate measuring device compliance. So same as we saw last year with the Yampa Basin. And as we saw in the Yampa, it has also brought efforts from the White, from several organizations over there, White River and Douglas Creek Conservation Districts, Yellow Jacket Water Conservancy District, and Rio Blanco Water Conservancy Districts, to seek funding for financial aid to help people get these measuring devices up installed in a lot of cases and up to compliance in others. So we continue to modernize, and change is hard, but I think people generally are looking at it positively. And I commend Division Engineer Light for just helping folks, lots of extensions being given out for people to come into compliance. And she's been very good about, with the COVID and, financial pain that many have been feeling, to make sure that she's giving people extra time, especially in the White River, that have just received their notices as well. So appreciate that. And I was speaking with one of her commissioners, Scott Hummer, the other day, and he told me that he's worked 86 days straight as a water commissioner up here in the valley. And when we went into this crisis, we had our office here had a few open positions that also went into a hiring freeze, as Becky was saying yesterday, with same as CWCB. So, a lot of people working extra time, to Greg Felt's point as well. So, Director Felt. So, yeah, just hoping that we can start seeing those positions get filled sooner rather than later, so we can avoid burnout. As I'm sure some of your rural areas know, turnover with the commissioners is exceptionally hard, both for the division, but also for just building and sustaining relationships with the rural water users too. So, Upper Yampa Water Conservancy District has been accepting applications for their diversion infrastructure improvement project, which encompasses some of the issues that I was just talking about, and then also just general improvements to head gates. And they reported that they have received 8 total applications over the past few months. And as you might remember, they were before us, I believe in January, where we approved their project, which was a little bit unique in that CWCB approved, I think it was $100,000 that they would then work to pass through their organizations to help people make these improvements, which just, kind of skips the long process and contracting process with CWCB. And so really pleased to see so many applicants there. And she said she had more that are interested. Also, our integrated water management plan up here in just the Yampa Basin has been rolling right along really well. Great contractors and good enthusiasm from the basin on this. So you may remember that the goal was to combine community input with science and engineering assessments to identify actions which will protect existing and future water uses and support healthy river ecosystems in the face of growing population, climate change, and changing land use issues as well. So we've done to date 45 diversion structure assessments, which is pretty impressive. That's across all of the basins. And the participants in those will receive sometime this fall a full report out from the engineering team that performed those, as well as just options for them to improve their operations and their diversions in the future. So I think that's really neat. It's a great way to connect with people who, haven't been able to afford somebody to come out or just haven't thought about it. So now they've had, some expertise come out and been able to interact with them and ask questions. And I just think that's really neat. So I'm really proud of the group for getting that accomplished. Also, the environmental team has started remote assessments of the Yampa and Elk rivers, and that's basically using prior studies, satellite and aerial imagery data, fisheries, flow, water quality data, and then they'll be able to look and see where, we have high and low functioning river sections, and where future data collection is proved to be useful as well. So that's great. And then finally, in lieu of being able to go out and do some tours for that IWMP work, the IWMP committee has been working with a video team to instead highlight 2 different restoration projects we've done here in the valley, one up in the Bear River in my neck of the woods, and then also in the Elk Head Creek basin as well. So I think that'll be really neat. Okay, and I think I wanted to also thank Linda and her staff, Lauren and Anna, who were up here and social distancing along the Trout Creek drainage where there's a proposed ISF. They were collecting data, and I hear camping so that they didn't have to, use hotels and that kind of thing to stay safe. So just a shout out to that to that department, and thanks to them for doing that work. Really appreciate it. So yeah, thanks for listening, and just really miss seeing you all in person. Hope everybody's doing well in all of your basins. And as many of you have said, trying times, I agree that I think we'll come out of this better than we went into it. And we've certainly all learned a lot about patience and, giving one another and ourselves the grace to get through hard times, and just recognizing that this too hopefully shall pass. So thank you all for the hard work you do and all the things you do for your basins.
Thank you, Director Brown. I am sorry that I got lost in the agenda here. Are there any questions for Director Brown? Seeing none, we will move on to 22H, the Colorado River Basin, and Director Schwartz.
Well, thank you, and thank you all. And I wish I were touring you here in the Roaring Fork and Colorado River Basin, and I'm just going to do a few quick pictures. Have the good fortune of grandchildren up here heading up to Lyle Lake at about 11:05, and they were just delighted to be able to be part of getting out of Boulder and getting to the western slope. And so maybe let's show a couple more pictures. If we can go to the next one. Am I in control or not? And here's a great shot of a frying pan, kind of in the evening. Storm clouds that really blew through, never produced very much. Maybe let's keep going to the next one. And again, our rivers are not where we'd like them to be totally, but still some good flows. And again, the high country streams. Let's keep going. And another beautiful picture of a lake up here, Savage Lakes, recently. And again, you can see snowpack we're losing snowpack quickly, but again, higher elevation lakes with some good fishing going on. Next. And this was a little visitor. I don't know if you can make it go live by pressing on it, but this was the biggest bear I have ever seen. He was just not too far from where we were, right above us. And I'm sorry that you can't see him lumber along, but you can see his size compared to the vegetation around. So one big boy, and not getting in too much direct trouble with us, but interesting to see him wander around, keep an eye on us. So what's the next one? Do you have another one for me? And again, last night, another view from the frying pan, and you can see the first hay cutting, and then way in the distance, you can see the high meadows being irrigated. Do we have another? And let's talk about fishing, and that would have been a great opportunity for all of us to share this experience. Again, on the frying pan, which is flowing at about 150 CFS, about half of its normal capacity right now. But just speaking to the fact that Colorado's outdoor water-related recreation economy is calculated about $18 billion. So these flows are super important. I had read, maybe you all did as well, that they've issued about 60,000 more fishing licenses this year compared to last year. And again, everyone was wanting to get out. It's the invasion of the sprinters. You just have people finding ways that they can be out in the backcountry, dispersed camping, recreating. And we need to recognize that at this time, the outdoors is an incredible resource, but meanwhile, while we're seeing temperatures rising on the Roaring Fork, we're going to have to start to moderate and control when fishing, when people can go out fishing because of the stress on the fish. So is there another? I'll give that for us. Is it the last one? Okay. So just going back, thanks for taking time and wishing we were upstanding on that stream bank together. But I want to start out by congratulating the Wild and Scenic success of late, and after 12 years of hard work, finally getting that over the finish line, and thanks to incredible work from the CWCB staff. And so just a shout out for that Wild and Scenic group and what that means for that part of the Upper Colorado and what it means for us long term for the preserving those values, the environmental and recreation values that we so appreciate. In going forward to our work section in September, and I have asked that we really revisit this issue around climate. I think more information helping inform our decision making is so critical, and just looking at Colorado's 2 to 6 degrees above average, and when you think of over the last 100 years, after from 1913 to 2017, our temperatures went up over about 2.5 degrees, but our flows decreased 20%. And now over this 30-year period to 2050, we could look at flows decreasing by another 25% additional, and threatening our hydropower, threatening a whole host of our issues. I think being able to look at the reality of where climate is, that unfortunately climate is moving at a faster pace than water policy is. And having, again, this opportunity to be in the high country, looking at the beetle kill, up these different valleys, which is really coming in, even though we have really diverse landscapes, but we are seeing that impact. And I don't know if Director Anderson, you have been over Kevlar, but it makes you weep when you see that, again, theoretically was one of the second largest living organisms in the world. The rate of devastation to that aspen forest is nothing short of remarkable. The standing dead and that sudden aspen decline, what it means to that, and just the demise of our landscapes because of this incredibly dry weather that we're seeing. And the irony is that we came into this year with kind of this 2019, 2020 cycle where we lacked that participation in spite of that big snowfall a year ago, that we had such a dry spring this year. The end of last summer was dry. We had average snowpack this year, and that this dryness of the spring and continuing through the summer, the soils, and we have really pushed this drought status, which is so frightening. So I think that we are facing so many challenges, and facing challenges as a board and as policymakers, and our ability to work with the state and the communities, but being on the leading edge of what are the issues around drought and climate, and how can we really find a way to anticipate these impacts long term. So looking at the flows, they're around half of normal right now, and the flows, be it Roaring Fork, Frying Pan, Lemon Springs, state line of about 30% of flows. So that's those are some of the realities we're looking at now, and fingers crossed that this monsoons will be part of weather pattern moving forward, we certainly haven't seen anything of any significance, and that 12-inch rule seems to be in place right now. We'll see if it starts moving up through the state. But there'll be a busy rest of the month as folks are participating in the roundtables. We'll be having our meeting on the 21st, and roundtable meeting will be on the 27th. River District will be having their annual meeting on the 21st, and the Colorado River District has been having these. Again, trying to embrace the broader community of in water issues, and having these lunch conversations, which I think are interesting, and actually they're evening conversations, but we're bringing in people to talk about the Shoshone, to talk about the main stem, ways that we can be dispersing information about water issues and having a broader understanding of our water resource. And so, as I said, roundtables meeting on the 27th. Next steps is coming up on the 24th of August. So, and our big process is moving along. So much information, good participation, and good reporting out. So we'll be glad to see what the outcomes are of that. We think about our challenges to everyday life, and maybe how fortunate we are to have the luxury of not being on the front lines, not being. My daughter works at Children's, being an essential worker. These are difficult times for all of us, as we are seeing the COVID numbers here in our county increased 20% last week. So we're concerned because people are migrating to our remote areas, to get out of cities, to get out of urban areas. The waiting lines for our school, waiting lists for our schools. You can't rent a property here. People are coming, and unfortunately, we need to have policies whereby we are encouraging our visitors to respect the fact that we've got a small environment that's not able to manage a big outbreak, and that how we all need to be embracing the same values. Difficult time for us, difficult time for our families and our economies, and as you said, it's a new normal. How are we going to adjust to what our challenges are, be it the drought, be it the climate, be it a pandemic? So thank you all. I miss you not being here. Wanted to share a little bit of this beauty, and hopefully next year we'll be able to conduct our outreach to our communities and be present and be working together. Thank you again.
Thank you, Director Schwartz. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item 22I, which is my report from the San Juan, San Miguel, Dolores River basins. I can't remember who I talked to that said that they hadn't seen pictures of river in a while, so I have a few for the day. I want to start out by congratulating Linda Bassey on the very well-deserved award. And I love that every time we meet, we're hearing about more of our excellent staff getting awards and taking positions. So congratulations to Stewie as well. There's a lot going on in the Southwest Basin. Most of our basin is in D3 extreme drought. We have not been getting a lot of rain. We did get some last night, which was very welcome. Our water managers are all very busy right now, and they are doing essential work in the basin, as are our ranchers and ag producers and other water users. There's been, this current about beetle kill and forest health throughout the director reports that is front and center of the work in my basin. The collaboratives across the basin are getting resources together. They are working together. They are getting the funding together. But there is a lot of work ahead of us. And I have to say, I have never seen so many fire helicopters in a summer, including the 2018 summer. So it's a pretty regular joy for my 2-year-old to see them, but I feel a little bit differently about seeing that kind of air traffic so regularly in our sky. Our roundtable has been very busy. Like many of you, our meetings are very well attended. I continue to have concerns about access for portions of our community that don't have good broadband access, and want to keep that front and center as we consider how we will continue to have meetings in the virtual format. We have been working hard at work with our Basin Implementation Plan Update Committee. There's been a lot to discuss, and really wanted to give a shout out to Harris Water Engineering and Carrie Paget for how they have been launching into that process with our roundtable. We are anticipating a change in leadership in our roundtable, and wanted to make sure to thank Mike Preston for his service. He has been the chair of that roundtable since I started attending meetings in 2009. I feel like we're not going to completely let him go into retirement, but we are anticipating that we will have new leadership at next week's meeting, which is on the 23rd. And along the lines of a change in leadership, I think many of you heard that Frank Kugel is no longer the director at the Southwestern Conservation District, and I just wanted to thank Frank for his short service in our basin. I really appreciate the work that he brought. In addition to the roundtable meeting, our Colorado River Committee of the roundtable is going to be meeting next week. I'm particularly excited that we have some of the researchers from the Western Water Assessment joining us to do a briefing on sort of the state of the science, especially around climate hydrology, and talking about what that might mean for our basin. And then the final roundtable and work group, I just wanted to thank the participants from my basin for the participation in the demand management work groups. That was quite the report that came from the board, and I wanted to thank you for that. There were a couple of other things that I wanted to mention in my report that are not roundtable related. One is that since we last met, issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion have been heavy on my mind. And I think that we in the water community have a lot of growth potential there. And so I was really encouraged to see the emails that came from Director Gibbs to the staff, but just wanted to put on the forefront that has been sort of heavy in my mind since our last meeting, along with all of the other challenges that we're facing right now. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is that since our last meeting, the Water and Tribes Initiative, which is co-led by my friend and colleague Daryl Vigil and Matt McKinney of the Lincoln Institute, has published a report about their work in the Colorado River Basin, which included the results of them spending last summer interviewing more than 100 leaders across the Colorado River Basin. I think that it is well worth all of our time to read that report and some of the discussions about tribal nations and their water rights in the Colorado River Basin. I just think it's an incredible resource that they put together, and I can work to make sure that that is available to the board. So I'll end by asking to advance the slides, and I put these pictures in so you could see river, and it's hard to believe that, it seemed like it was just the other day that we were having that intense executive session about Colorado River issues, and the staff was taking turns, holding him at the meeting so we could get through that executive session. But I put these pictures in the report for another reason, and that is that I just cannot overstate the amount of pressure that I have been under to provide full-time care for my toddler while his daycare has been closed, to try to meet the demands of my job and to be present at all of the meetings that we have. And so I wanted to take a minute to just acknowledge that our staff and board members are potentially caring for their families and elders through this. That's really important. And I feel like we all need to make sure that we don't try to do too much. There are a lot of meetings going on. It is possible to be in Zoom meetings for 9 hours a day, every single day, and not take time off. And so just wanted to put out there that we need to also acknowledge that there's this whole other side that we're all doing right now, caring for our families. And that is incredibly important for us. So just wanted to make sure that, especially, staff that are working really hard, I understand that you are doing a lot of other things right now too. So I will end my report. I think I have one more picture and I will end it with that. Are there any questions for me? Well, seeing none, we are through our agenda, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn, but don't go anywhere. I will give you some instructions in a minute.
So moved.
Second.
Director Felt has moved to adjourn, seconded by Director Yan. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. If you have any objection, raise your hand or put something in the chat. And the motion is approved. So it is 10 o'clock right now. The meeting of the CWCB is adjourned. For the board members, you do not need to log out of the Zoom meeting. We will be